Hey, how everybody doing? How can I do this? Let's see. What's this? Share screen and screen edit. Hold on 1 second. Mic check, mic check. But yeah, today I want to speak about everyone is not built to go to Africa. You know, it's a big movement going on where a lot of people want to move to Africa. You know, whether it's Kenya, East Africa, South Africa, West Africa, or Central Africa. But I just want to say that you know, as beautiful as the pictures and videos are that you might see of Africa, that's not that's not all that is to it when you go into the motherland. I've been to Africa 3 times. I've been to Gambia, Kenya, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And what I learned is that if you got if you got an American mindset, if you Americanized, meaning if you want everything to be smooth, um, if you don't want people trying to get over you just because you're from America or you have an English accent or a European accent, if you looking for the perfect infrastructure, meaning that if you're looking for all the roads to be perfect, if you're not used to seeing poverty, if you don't want to see like serious poverty in certain areas, or maybe depending on what country you're at, you might see it daily. Uh, if you're not ready for those things, then you're not ready for Africa. If you're not if you're not ready to be in weather where it's warm, to me, I love the Africa weather, but if you certain countries it's hotter than others. So if you're not used to that good sun every day, you know, if you're not if you want uh what's the word they use, the convenience, if you're looking for convenience, meaning that if you like certain foods, certain snacks, certain restaurants, uh how can I say, maybe certain mechanic shops that do your car right, you know, the first time. If you're looking for customer service, meaning that like in America, if we don't like something, or maybe a problem happened with the thing, sometimes you might not get your money back overseas in Africa, because you have to realize Africa is a developing country. You know, it's still growing. You know, country like South Africa is still coming a long way. You know, Kenya got good infrastructure, but it's still developing, meaning that there are people on an economic level that still living way below poverty. You know, and I realized traveling through Africa that what we call the hoods here, the ghettos, our ghettos in America is middle class over there in Africa. Their government doesn't issue them out food stamps. Their government doesn't issue them out stimulus checks. Their governments doesn't issue them out social security checks. Um, and on the level that people receive in America. Because you got people making $100 a month, $200 a month, $300 a month, $400 a month, $60 a month, and then you got the business people who making good money every month. You know, you got millionaires and billionaires in a lot of these countries. So the point that I'm making is that if you can't get past those things I just named, then Africa is not for you. You know, so it's not like in America where you can come over here, you know, find out rental places. Where okay, over here you can see a sign. Now it is scammers in America. Yeah. Also, I want to mention that you can run into scammers in Africa as well. That you have to be careful. If you don't know the right people, you can get scammed. But in America, you got nine times out of 10 for things to happen, because here, uh, people are held. You can hold someone accountable. A person can get over you, but as long as you got some kind of proof, that person name and information, you can't have that person be held accountable in the court of law, whether it's civil law or general session. Sometimes, or Supreme Court, depending on your situation, if you have to go to that level. So I mention these things is that when moving to Africa, you need to be aware of these things that's going to happen to you. You have to be plugged in to people that's already on the ground that you can trust. You have to be a thinker. You have to be a person who does research. If you're too lazy to get on the if you're too lazy to get online, Facebook, and look up houses for rent and things like that in that country, then you're not ready for Africa. If you can't think, if you don't have no street smarts that you learned from America, you is not ready for Africa. Because what's going to happen is once you get over there, you could be taken advantage of just because you come from America. You can you're gonna lose money. I don't care how well traveled you are. You're gonna lose a little bit of money when going to Africa. Someone gonna take advantage of you. Sometimes strictly from right at the airport when you land. And as you travel throughout the country exploring, someone gonna take advantage of you, especially like countries where they don't have Uber yet. And that's another thing you have to worry about. In Africa, you're gonna have Uber drivers trying to take advantage of you. They want you to cancel your trips and tell you that they want cash. But I told them I'm not canceling my trip. I'm not canceling my ride because I want to still be in the system in case something happened to me. They won't be able to tell the police or whatever that I canceled my ride and they never seen me before. So, but before moving to Africa, you first need to travel to the country first and explore. You need to go over there, spend at least 2 weeks or a month in whatever country you desire. But it's good to go to different countries because so you can get a more of an outlook on these countries to see which one you like, the one that make you feel at home. Because true indeed, Africa is the home where our ancestors was taken from. But every country you might not feel that at home feeling in, even though you're back in the motherland, not because of the natural resources. It's because of the environment, the mentality of the people. Now Africa is, you got a lot of good people there, a lot of welcoming people there, but not all are welcoming. They're welcoming, but some still have a motive. So you have to be careful and go over there yourself and do your research. Look up research on how much $1 is in that currency, so that way you can see how far your dollar will stretch in that country. Because regardless of how cheap people tell you things are in Africa, those things will still add up. Yes, your dollar go far, but because what's happened is things are so cheap to us coming from America because of the dollar, the strength of the dollar, is that you're going to be thinking, well, hell, I can buy 5 of these right here, or I can stock up on all this stuff. You have to learn to shop a little over there. Like you can't, like in America, we like to buy things in bulk, but over there you have to buy things in small amounts. So that way you're not overspending. So that way there's no waste. You're not throwing things away. You're not. Don't take that American lifestyle over there with you if you don't have that type of money. It's people that go to Africa and they splurge and they try to ball out like they is like as if they in America. And what happens is their money runs out and then they have to be packing up, having to come back to the USA and explain to their family about what happened, about why they coming back. And some of these people are selling off their houses, cars, everything that they own in order to make that big move to Africa without doing like no real research. So that's something that people need to learn. Like you need to exercise money management skills. A lot of people have no money management skills. You know, you need to get you a notebook pad and a pen and write down an expense column, income column, liability column, and asset column. Those are the four things you need to write down. And your expenses is like if you don't have at least, okay, you can go to Africa with a lot of money. You know, you can go there with 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. But you have to think about you're gonna need income coming in. You know, just because you got 20, 30,000, that's only gonna last you for so long. You know, we don't heard countless stories where people don't went to Africa with $50,000, 100,000, and still had to come back to America with nothing because they don't sold everything off. Because they listen to a lot of these YouTubers who telling you like, you know, come on back to Africa, you know, get up out of Babylon. You know, they're not telling you the reality of what you need to be doing before you make that big move like that. You know, like I made a video you can check out where I blew 20,000 traveling across Africa. Not, but I was coming back to America though, and that 20,000 that's because I was like doing safaris and you know I was like exploring everything. You know, I was going to different countries to see which ones I liked. So that's why I did that, and I was able to make it back. You know, when I got back to America. But if I was moving permanently, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. And you know, you have to exercise caution. You know, when going to anywhere foreign, you know, you can't be trying to be in certain areas at certain times of the night. You know, you have to just use common sense. You know, most of us who stay in big cities in America, you already should know how to move. You see what I mean? You know, you can trust people, but don't trust them that much. You know, uh, it's best to try to establish getting your own vehicle, so that way you won't have to rely on public transportation. Even though public transportation is cheap, but sometimes you want to have your own vehicle because you might be in the country where you got to negotiate with taxi drivers and stuff like that. So you can have you put the power in your own hands. You know, you have to create a monthly budget. You know, you want to put your monthly budget together. You know how much you're going to spend each month once you understand how prices go in that country. You know, you got to ask yourself, do you want to shop in Africa? You got to ask yourself, okay, do you still want to shop at the supermarkets there? Because supermarkets prices are way higher than buying from local markets. Local markets is where people sell fruits, vegetables, you know, all that type of good stuff for cheaper prices than what you buy at the grocery store. But some people might not want to buy from those people for whatever reason. You know, maybe because you see the food been laying out all day there. You know, if you like to buy fish, you know, you might see like flies around the fish section where you go buy fish at in the local market. So sometimes that could turn someone off. So they might want to buy fish from the supermarkets, which is going to be higher than buying from the local fishermen that sell their fishes at the market. So that's something you got to think about, because if you're shopping in the supermarket, now you got to create a higher budget that you're going to spend monthly. You know, if you got children, okay, not only you got to think about how beautiful Africa is, but you can't get caught up in that part, because you got to think about, if I got children, okay, I'm about to pay these school fees, you know, and over there, coming from America, you going even the locals, they want to put their children in the international schools over there, you know, or some of the best schools, so your child can have a more better education. So that's something else you got to think about in your budget if you got children, you know. And also you got to learn how to do business in that country. If you want to, like, you cannot go to, like, don't go to Africa looking for jobs and things like that. If you, yes, that's something else I want to speak on. If you're going over there to look for jobs, then Africa not for you. You have to be in the mindset to go over there and create businesses. You know, you got to learn how businesses work over there. You know, how to register your business. You know, find out about the taxes over there. Employees, you got to find the right workers, and the workers that, like, the workers might not come to work on time. You know, so you have to understand the culture over there. Like in America, people know to be on time or you'll get rolled up. People know, you know, all those things are already in place. But In Africa, people might not be on time all the time, so you have to understand how the culture of things work and adapt to the culture, but also kind of putting a stern hand on it, to have your employees tighten up. So a lot of people businesses crumble over there just because you started a business, you know, it might not survive. You see what I mean? So sometimes when you're doing a business, sometimes you might just want to test the market to see how things go. So it's not good to dive head first into that culture until you understand how that culture is, because just because you got an idea, that culture might not accept it. You understand me? So um and also you can't be trusting of YouTubers to give you advice on business and investing, because most of the times a lot of them never had a business while they was in America. So uh in Africa, so it's gonna translate over there because they're not gonna know how to run the business. They're not gonna know how to take the ups and downs that come with the business. It don't matter where you at, because a lot of countries in Africa, people not spending money like how we do in America. Like people not just balling out. Money moves slow over there. You know, uh, a lot of times, food can sell good. Stuff like that, uh, but that could be seasonal in some countries. They can only be like when tourist season, because a lot of these countries they depend on tourist money. So most of the year it could be real dry. You know, and so those are things, those are some of the things you need to look out for when before you think about moving to Africa, because you got to be ready for the unknown. You got to be ready to go into the unknown until you make it known. Meaning, you don't know what's gonna happen, but you got to be built. While you in the midst of not knowing what's gonna happen, you got to be ready to go through that process until everything becomes known. Meaning that now you got knowledge of the country. Now you got knowledge of how things work, and you still have income there to hold you over during that process until you understand how things go. Till you understand how things flow. Then you can come out on the other side and have yourself established. It's okay to come back and forth. Don't think that you got to just move cold turkey to Africa. You can go over there months at a time to come back, regroup, stack up money, go back over there, boom, come back, stack up money, regroup, go back and forth, ship products over there, boom, go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You might do that for a few years until you finally like, okay, now I got the income, man, where I can just be over here permanently. You got people that travel 6 months out of the year, and they might stay in the area 6 months, then come back to the States 6 months. So that could be your plan. Don't follow the YouTubers. Like I say, going over the cold turkey. Take your time with anything that you do. But please like, uh, subscribe, and share this video if you got any value out of it. And y'all be safe. Peace out.